Now, in this segment, we have Dennis Crenshaw telling us all the good deeds and bad deeds of Admiral Richard E. Byrd. And we'll continue this over the next few days because it's actually a fairly long documentary. But enjoy it.
I want to thank you all for being here this afternoon. And I want to especially thank this gentleman right in front, to what would be to your right here. This is Larry. Larry, what is your last name?
Gallant.
Larry Gallant. He is editor of the Ancient American magazine, and a researcher of the Pennsylvania mounds in well, of course, naturally, the Pennsylvania area. And he came all the way up here to see what we had and to listen to our wonderful speakers. And speaking about speakers, we have Dennis Crenshaw. And as most people know, we go back years. And we have a lot, and years. And we have a lot of respect for each other's work. And,
Yes.
And now, a lot of you know about Admiral Byrd for the Inner Earth. And you've heard the stories about him and what he had discovered. But today you're going to hear the other side of the story with Dennis Crenshaw. So we welcome Dennis Crenshaw to Burlington and thank him for being our friend. Dennis Crenshaw.
Thank you, guys. The presentation I'm going to be presenting today, the Hollow Earth theory has been around since 1913, and a lot of things have been said about Rear Admiral Byrd, one of our great heroes. And because of the things that have been said about him, the Hollow Earth theory hasn't progressed since the 60s, because everybody gets hung up on Admiral Byrd, what he did, looking for holes at the poles, all these type of things.
Speak louder, you're a little soft.
I'm sorry?
Speak louder, you're a
Okay.
little soft. Maybe you need microphone power.
That
I
microphone,
can hear him loud and clear back here.
Okay, never mind.
Closer.
that microphone
That's not working. Anyway,
goes to the camera.
Oh, I'm sorry.
anyway, so there's been a lot of misconceptions about Admiral Byrd, and in particularly when it relates to the Hollow Earth theory, and I believe it's on purpose. But what we are here to do, and I'm not alone. I'm with my partner Rick Osmond. Him and I, a little background. Him and I have been investigating different types of paranormal stuff for probably 15 years together. Also with Mary Sutherland. The three of us have corresponded and shifted and given each other information forever. And one of the reasons we wanted to come is because the Hollow Earth theory can be taken forward, and it will be today. You guys will be the first ones hearing some of this stuff. My portion of the presentation is actually on Admiral Byrd. When I get through, that's going to end one phase of the Hollow Earth theory. Rick is going to step up here, and y'all are going to hear stuff you've never heard before. So I hope you enjoy it. Those of you that are into it, those that you aren't, we have a little explanation. That's me many years ago. That's a piece of artwork done by a man named Max Fifield, who's a famous artist in Sweden, but not under that name. But he's also known as the unofficial Hollow Earth artist, because for every magazine having to do with Hollow Earth, I'm talking about fanzines, mine came out in 92 and I published till 98 until the internet took over. Since the 60s, every Hollow Earth publication, he has done the covers for some of them. So he's a very famous artist, but he won't let us give out his name. If any of you into Hollow Earth, you've seen his work, and the next one will show that. We started with a group of researchers. I started it with a group of 10 researchers who were interested in the subject, and through Robert Gerard, who owns Arcturus Books. I know some of you have ordered books from him. He helped me spread it around the world, and the Hollow Earth Insider by 1998 went to somebody in every state in the Union and 35 other countries. The Hollow Earth Insider is just not about Hollow Earth. It's about Hollow Earth, subterranean worlds, UFOs, New World Order, on and on and on. It's all the subjects everybody likes in a Hollow Earth. I'm re-releasing the whole 582 pages of research from all these researchers in December. However, I did bring some with me from Mary for you guys, if any of you want to see me after the show. At any rate, this is the famous Max Fifield drawing that everybody's seen that has anything to do with Hollow Earth, only it's been filled in. What we discovered, what I discovered, and I'm not going to get into that too much, but I discovered in about 85, I realized from looking at all the UFO research from 1947 forward to about 1954 when the CIA took over the involvement of UFOs and convinced everybody that they were from outer space. What I discovered is they're actually earthly phenomena. In fact, Bigfoot, you can name anything, it's earthly phenomena. They've got us looking out in space, and we're not finding anything. That's because we don't look at the Earth. So what I did was I got this group of investigators together, and I decided to break the Earth. If they're from Earth, where could they be from? That's the question. So we broke it up into several areas. We've got the outside where we all live, and there are places where they could be from. There's the jungles of Brazil, for instance, where there's a lot of UFO activity, a lot of other type activity. There's the oceans. The UFOs are seen coming out of water, diving into water all the time. They also seem to need water for propulsion because they're seen sucking it up. So we've got the oceans, we got the outside. There's the Arctic and the Antarctic because the government doesn't let us go there. There's things going on there, and we'll talk a lot about that today. And then there's what they call the Hollow Earth. Well, first there's what they call the subterranean worlds, which is this area here, which is the area between the crust and what they call the inner core, the mantle. It's 2,500 miles thick. The deepest we have drilled is 8.5 miles. So therefore, we know nothing about it in reality. So what I tell you will be theory. It'll be everybody's theory. What you learn in school is fact, is theory. So the other one is inside the Hollow Earth, which would be this area right here. Okay? Now this, like I say, this is not a talk about the Hollow Earth. And what this is a talk about is Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd and what they say about him. I spent 2 years investigating Richard Byrd and the Arctic and Antarctic exploration. I was fortunate enough to live in Jacksonville, Florida, and they had all the books in the basement. They let me in there having to do with Arctic and Antarctic exploration that was written during the 1800s up to about 1922. So I spent 2 years with that and going through the microfiche of the New York Times to get my information. And all this information is available in the Hollow Earth Insider, plus much more. So, like I say, I'm not going to go into Hollow Earth, but we do have to have a little theory for those that don't understand it. Where did it come from and that type of thing. So I did put together a little bit of stuff called the Hollow Earth Theory 101. The Hollow Earth Theory, and I'm going to switch to my notes because I'm not used to speaking. I'm a researcher, not a president, but I'm doing this. In this presentation, we'll be looking at an area of my research during those days which I found most fascinating. Admiral Byrd has long been the champion of Hollow Earth research and is always brought up when someone asks for proof. It is these claims we would be looking at in this presentation. While we did not find the smoking gun to prove the claims regarding Admiral Byrd, we did find evidence of a more sinister kind when it came to the world's secret government. I call them the controllers. That was that one. Got an extra slide in here. And like I say, Rick will be covering the Hollow Earth much, much more in depth than I am. Dr. Edmund Halley, And if you guys hear him correct me, he does that on, by the way, we also do a TV radio show on the internet together. And I have problem with names. I have problem remembering. I'm not that good. I can read and I can figure stuff out, but he's my voice when it comes to a problem. So if y'all hear him shout out anything, he's right. I'm wrong. Okay. Dr. Edmund Halley, okay, the man who discovered the comet in a speech before the Royal Society of London said, quote, beneath the crust of the earth, which is 500 miles thick, is a hollow void. The noted astronomer added, inside this space are 3 planets. They are approximately the size of Mars, Venus, and Mercury. There's a picture of him right there. And then, now, while we were putting this together, and just a few days ago, we found out some interesting stuff. Alex Hawley says that, says that the moon says that he says that all heavenly bodies are hollow. Okay, so just a few days ago, we were reading some stuff that we got through the internet, and we found that this is a quote from a report featured in Astrology News, dateline March 25th, 2010. It's, quote, scientists are estimating that between 25 and 35% of Phobos' interior is empty. We're talking about the moon around Mars. They have arrived at this conclusion because Phobos simply doesn't have as much gravity as it should. The dimensions of this moon are quite well established, so it's possible to get a rough estimate of how much gravity there should be if the whole body is solid rock. In other words, they're saying the moon is hollow. And this is 2 scientific studies that have, and they are actually saying, yes, it is hollow. But of course, what are they saying next? Oh, well, it's artificial. They're saying, well, I'll get to that. They're saying, oh, it's artificial. Why are they saying that? Because heavenly bodies are solid. Because the next question is, why are they saying it's artificial? Because the next question is, if it's artificial, who built it? And that's a question they don't want to answer. So why are they telling us that it's hollow? That follows along with, and this reminds me of our own moon. In 1975, regarding our own moon, Don Wilson reported in his own book, Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon, quote, in 1962, Dr. Gordon McDonnell, a leading scientist at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, published a report in the July issue of Astronautics. And he states that according to an analysis of the moon's motion, it appears that the moon is hollow. If the astronomical data are reduced, it is found that the data requires that the interior of the moon be less dense than the outer parts. Indeed, it would seem that the moon is more like a hollow than a homogeneous sphere, and that was on page 73. Also, in the 60s, a Russian scientist said the moon is hollow. Now, this is something you don't hear about. I mean, why aren't we taught this in school? But anyway, and Alex Haley said all heavenly bodies are hollow. Remember that.
You're hollow.
Yeah, Haley, you're right. And then we have the theory. The theory was next adopted by Leonard Euler, who is spelled E-U-L-E-R. So I always say Euler, but he's on me all the time, so his real name is Euler. He is a noted mathematician and one of the founders of higher mathematics. He rejected Dr. Hawley's belief that that there were 3 planets in the hollow Earth, and believes there was a center sun in the Earth's interior, which provided daylight to a splendid subterranean civilization. A still unqualified quote attributed to him is, quote, mathematically the Earth has to be hollow. However, my research partner, Rick Osmond, will be presenting compelling evidence in his presentation up on this program, pointing towards the fact that Hawley and Euler are right. And remember, I'm not giving evidence for or against. I'm not saying it is or not. I am presenting the hollow Earth theory as it was written in 1913. Enter Captain John Cleve Sims, war hero of the War 1812. Once his studies led him to believe in a hollow earth, he used his knowledge to convince James McBride, a Miami, Ohio millionaire. Mr. McBride used his connections with Representative Richard M. Johnson, Democrat of Kentucky, later Vice President under Van Buren, to petition to Congress to finance an expedition to claim the lands inside the earth for the U.S. The petition, by a vote of 56 to 46, was tabled. You can find this in the History of Congress, the Congressional Record for July 1823 on pages 698 and 699, called Sims Theory. And just a quick couple of things I wanted to show you because they're neat. This is Captain Sims. His family were the original settlers of Hamilton, Ohio. So they have this hollow earth monument to him. And here's a picture of the actual monument in Sims Park in Hamilton, Ohio. It's there right now. You can go see it. The theory was
Well, we'll get to part 2 of Dennis's study in Richard E. Byrd tomorrow, but stick around because we have a whole lot more today on the Oompa Loompa Cafe. Be back in just a moment.